Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our presentation today. My name is Rida Hashmi.
And I'm Becky Stacey.
And tonight we're going to be talking about cybercrime.
So we work at the Regional Organised Crime Unit, which is part of the West Midlands Police, but we work in the Cybercrime Unit, as you might expect. So we cover quite a large area of the West Midlands. So we cover Worcester here as well, but all the way up to Staffordshire and Warwickshire. On our team, we do a number of different things. The first thing you might expect is we investigate cybercrime. It's called the Pursue team, and we do lots of investigations into kind of national and international level cybercrime, which is very interesting.
I'm part of the second team that makes up the cybercrime unit. It's called the 3P team. It stands for Protect, Prevent and Prepare. Prevent is a team that's dedicated to the safeguarding of children. So what we do is we go into schools and we educate safeguarding leads and teachers on what to look out for when a child might be at risk of committing cybercrimes or being groomed by an online gang. And so once those children are referred to us, we make sure that they have the proper guidance and resources in order to recognize whether or not they want to go into a career in cybersecurity instead, and basically diversify their future options instead of allowing them to go down a path of becoming a cyber criminal. Protect and Prepare is more business focused. So Protect and Prepare both offer free training to businesses. So Protect is focused on non-technical staff. So that's your HR, your finance, and we go to them and we explain the importance of cybersecurity and how to keep their data and the company's data safe by teaching them how to recognize phishing emails or scam callers. And the Prepare side is more so for the stakeholders of a business or the owners, and it's to ensure that they know the proper procedures and protocols they need to follow in the case that they do get hacked, so who they need to report it to, how long they have to disclose it, and we also provide extra support to them as well if they are victims of the cyber attack.
So to start with, we're going to do a little Q&A to see if people can have a guess at some of the things that we see every day on our placement. Does anyone have any thoughts about what they think the average age of a cyber criminal might be?
6 or 10.
Go on. Give a guess.
I would say younger, but is it 20?
That's a good guess. Anyone higher or lower on that? Do we think?
Say like 20.
20, yeah.
14.
14. Any?
I know there's children in primary school that have been.
Yeah, so you're all pretty close. The average age is 16 years old. So pretty in the middle of you two. And yeah, we do see kids in primary school committing cyber offences. Things as simple as kind of breaking into their school systems happens a lot. And so that's why we spend quite a lot of time as a team going into schools, talking to teachers about what to do when that happens, and then supporting the kids doing that. The next one is, does anyone know what the maximum prison sentence is for breaking the Computer Misuse Act, which is the act that makes hacking illegal, basically? Anyone, any idea?
20 years.
20 years, good guess, yeah. Anything else, higher, lower, do we think? Yes?
Is it live?
Yeah, so that's a good one. So it's up to 14 years for most attacks, but if the attack threatens national security, you can get up to life imprisonment. So a lot of the kids, especially that we talk to, don't realise that what they're doing is illegal, and so we have to talk to them about what the Computer Misuse Act says, because often they don't know that when they hack into the school system, they think it's fun, but it's actually illegal to do, and they could end up in prison. So that's the kind of thing we talk to them about. What about the cost of cybercrime to the UK economy? Any guesses? £100, £1 million? Go on.
Say 20 million.
Nice.
Billions.
Yeah. Billions. How many billions?
80.
Good guess. Good guess. A bit high. A bit high. It's £14 billion at the moment, which is 0.5% of the UK's GDP. So it's a huge number, really. And a lot of the concern for businesses is about the money they're going to lose if they get cyber attacked. And so we try to talk to them about why it's so important to protect themselves, to save themselves money. how long do you think a cyber criminal spends in a network or a system that they've got into before they alert the user? So if you're part of a business and someone gets into your network and you don't know about it, how long do you think they're in there before they tell you?
286 days.
Very specific, but that's yeah. Any higher or lower on that? 286 days.
I know it's a few months because I know a few that have been
Yeah.
a few months in the making.
Yeah. So we see anything from 1 month to 6 months, which I think is especially scary, because if you imagine somebody like rooting around in your house for 6 months, finding out everything and to know about you, that's basically what they're doing in your systems. So they spend a long time in there trying to gather data before they actually tell you or before you notice. And then the final one, does anyone have any guesses about what the biggest threat to businesses might be right now? So like the type of cyber attack that we see most often.
Ransomware.
Glad if people could guess that. That's good. Yeah, so ransomware is the biggest one that we see and the biggest one that we investigate as well.
I was going to say the biggest threat is their employees, typically.
Yeah. So the biggest, we will also talk about that, the biggest threat to a company experiencing a ransomware attack is usually their employees doing something wrong. And most of the time we spend with businesses is talking about how to make their employees more secure rather than any technical business.
Normally through phishing, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Phishing, exactly. So for anyone who doesn't know, ransomware is a type of malware or malicious software where the cyber criminal will encrypt a whole network or a whole company's data, and then they will ask for a ransom or some money in exchange for the decryption of that data. And so we'll start with an example of this. So this is a quite big example that's been in the news a lot recently, the M&S attack. And this is a good example of phishing as well. So the cyber criminals got into the system by doing something super simple. They just called up the M&S IT service and said, "Hi, I work here. I can't log in anymore. Can you reset my password?" And the IT people on the other side said, "Yeah, that's fine." They reset their password. They reset the multi-factor authentication that the person had on their account, and they got in and they were into the system. They just pretended to be somebody else, basically. And then once they were in, they moved through the network. So they gained more privileged access. They were able to find like hashed passwords and other user accounts within the network. And then once they'd spent a long time in the network, they released their ransomware. They used a ransomware from a group called Dragon Force. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the whole of the M&S systems were off. I think there was like 60 days where you couldn't order things from M&S. Lots of their self-service machines in their shops were down. This was all this year. And then the attackers negotiated with the M&S team via messages to ask for a ransom, basically. So this had a huge impact on M&S. They lost £300 million in profits. I mean, M&S is a huge company. Every second that they are not working, they're losing money. And then also the hackers stole lots of personal customer information. So they stole names, email addresses, all sorts of things, which is not only just bad, but it could also come with legal consequences, because obviously it's not good to release other people's information. So who actually did this attack? So this is where it gets interesting, because often we think of hackers as kind of lone wolves. They're just someone in the back of a garage doing hacking. But what we're seeing more and more now is that these attacks are done by sophisticated, organized crime networks. So this one was done by a group called Scattered Spider, and they specialize in the social engineering part. So they did the calling up and getting access to the system. They don't just decide one day to call up. They'll have done solid research into M&S employees to try and find somebody who they thought they could best impersonate to get in. And then the Scattered Spider group used someone else's ransomware, a group called Dragon Force. So Scattered Spider would have paid Dragon Force for the use of their ransomware to do the attack. And Ridder's going to explain a bit more about the ransomware groups that we see.
So a ransomware group is a type of cyber criminal gang. By using ransomware specifically, they go and target businesses in order to extort money from them. What makes them so dangerous is that they're highly organized enterprises and they have significant presence and clear roles, similar to what you would find in more traditional companies. So what they use is a model called ransomware as a service. So how these groups operate is they will create a ransomware and then they will lease it out to individual hackers who are known as affiliates for a price, or a group will go to another group and pay a portion of the ransom they collect in order to use the ransomware developed by said group. It's a growing risk because it allows the building of a cyber criminal network, and with all these criminals collaborating with one another, it means that the ransomware they create is not only faster, but it's harder to detect. It poses risks to education, government, infrastructure, and healthcare. And when a company is a victim of a cyber attack, it poses a risk not only to the company's reputation, but the employees as well, as their data being stolen means that they are more at risk at being victims of identity fraud or theft. By facing this loss of trust, it may impact their future businesses as well. And this is especially dangerous for people in the public sector, because if a device gets damaged from a cyber attack, they may not have the funds that are needed to replace it. So this right here is the cyber kill chain. So this is what cyber security specialists use it's one of the methods that they use in order to break down a system and see the different parts in which an attacker might gain access and to identify any weaknesses, as these are the 7 stages that any cyber criminal needs to go through in order to complete an attack on your business. This was developed by a man named Lockheed Martin, and I'm going to go through the 7 stages. So the first stage is reconnaissance, and this is when the attacker finds open source information on the company on their target. So this can be through the company's website, or it can also be through websites like LinkedIn. It's so that they can find any clients, suppliers, or employees who they can gain information on, usually to perform a social engineering attack or to see if they are susceptible to social engineering themselves. They also use softwares like port scanners and network analysis software in order to identify any vulnerabilities within the company's network itself. The second stage is weaponization. Once they have enough knowledge of the company itself and the weaknesses that are in it, they will create something called a hostile payload. So a payload refers to any data or program that can be used by the attacker and sent over the system in order to carry out the cyber attack. So this stage can involve making a ransomware, editing pre-existing malware, or making a script that can be deployed upon opening. The third stage is delivery. So this is how they get it to the system or to the person who will allow them entry. So this can be through a traditional phishing email or through a USB stick. So once that USB is plugged into your computer, it will allow the hacker to have access to it. Another way they can do it is just straight through the internet. So for example, if you have a company and you have the websites hosted on a web server, but said server has vulnerabilities, then a hacker can send a very specific kind of payload through to it in order to hijack your system. The fourth stage is exploitation. So this is when the payload that they've created, a smaller, more compact version, is put through into the system. And this is so that a connection is made so that a larger payload can be sent over at a later time. The fifth stage, installation. This is when the malware itself is installed onto the target system so that hackers can remain on it. This can involve downloading additional softwares, hiding their presence from intrusion detection systems or firewalls, or setting up a backdoor so that they can have continuous access. The sixth stage is command and control. So this is when the attacker establishes a connection between the network they want to take over and their own server, called a command and control server. This is usually manual. So what will happen is the attacker will send an instruction through the command and control server, and the traffic from that server to the victim's network will be hidden amongst more legitimate traffic like HTTP and DCP protocols. Once this step is carried out, we'll move on to the final stage, which is actions on objectives. So this is when the hacker will carry out the specific actions to complete the initial objective of the hack in the first place. This can be to exfiltrate data, which means to make a copy of the data on their own server without the user's consent, or it can be to just spread their own presence within the targeted infrastructure. Almost all cyber attacks follow this kind of protocol, these stages, in order to be completed. And now we'll move on to some infamous groups. So one group that I want to talk about is Lockbit. So Lockbit was a group that was responsible for around 1,039 attacks in 2023 using their Lockbit 3.0 software. What makes them so dangerous was the fact that not only did they use ransomware services that other groups used, but they built upon it and they made quite a successful business structure. They're unique because prior to them, how ransomware attacks would work is that the company that created the ransomware itself, the cybercriminal gang, they would be in control of the ransom. So the affiliate, the person who carried out the attack, would get a cut from the group itself. What they said was, if a hacker wants to use their ransomware, then they have full access to the ransom and they just need to pay the group a 20% fee. By treating their ransomware as a product, they were able to gain a wide range of affiliates and attack many different industries. However, in 2024, their websites were seized by law enforcement, and this started their downfall as it ruined the trust between them and their affiliates, but also between their victims. The expectation from the victim was that once they paid the ransom fee, that all of the data that had been encrypted, that had been stolen, would have been deleted. And so there'd be no more record of it and it would be back in their hands. However, it was found that Lockbit had kept all of this data on their own servers. So then when they tried to carry out future attacks, victims became less inclined to pay because they felt that even regardless whether if they did and didn't pay, their data was gone. Killin is another very infamous group, and it is responsible for, I think, the most attacks in 2025. What makes them unique is that they have a cross-platform ransomware and they use double extortion. So their ransomware is highly customizable and can be used on both Linux and Windows. And because of its customizability, it's incredibly hard to detect. They use double extortion as well. So not only do they encrypt the data, they exfiltrate it. So when a victim is faced with the ransomware by Killin, it means that they have the pressure of trying to get their data back, but also the pressure of making sure that the data itself isn't shared. So at the RockU, what we do is we try to keep track of the different ransomwares and ransom attacks that go on. And what we use are these two sites. What they do is they scrape the dark web for the publicly exposed information from these hacking groups. And once that's done, it collates it into a more readable format. And we're going to show you what this website looks like and how we use it. So I can't really see it on our screen. Okay. So this is what the ransomware.live looks like. And as you can see, we can see when the last attacks happened today. So like these companies that we see here, the ABC Home and Commercial Services and Scientology, they were attacked today, probably just earlier. If you scroll back, it keeps a record of when each company has been attacked. If we go and look at the statistics, we can see the statistics for 2025. So Killing has the most victims in 2025, and the total victims are 7,398. And these are companies, not the individual people themselves. So that could be in the thousands. These are their victims per month from ransomware. And you can see all kinds of statistics about what's been going on and which sectors are the most targeted.
Those companies that were attacked, is there any detail about what it was that they did? Was it a phishing attack, or is there any detail about what they did after that?
We can see what each group sort of portfolio kind of looks like. So what attacks they tend to use. It's important that I say to you guys that these websites do not distribute the stolen data in any way. And instead, what we can look at though is how these groups operate. So if I go to Hero, we can see that the last attack was today, that they've been inactive for 0 days. And on average, they spend about 52 days within somebody's system before they're ever detected or they make themselves known. So here we have known locations. These are their victim engagement websites. So as you can see, it says .onion. These are Tor browsers. So if we go and we look into their ransom notes, we can see that this is what they leave for their victims to find. So once they want to make themselves known within the system, they'll leave these TXT files, or there's been a case where they've hacked the printers and they just kept printing them off. And what you can see is they'll ask the victims to download Tor, and they'll ask them to access a link in order to get into a chat room with them so that they can communicate with one another. So we can also see what they use in order to infiltrate a system, how they evade the defense mechanisms, how they exfiltrate their data. And we can also look at one of their chats as well. So these chats are given through the chat project, the ransomware chat project. So it's a project that's dedicated to making sure that people have more access to censored versions of these chats, so that once a company does get attacked, they're not sort of going into it blind, and it gets rid of the mystery of it all. And as you can see here, we can see how this person reacted to their company being hacked. So now what?
Hello, you've reached an Akira support chat. Currently, we're preparing the list of data we took from your network. From now, you have to know that dealing with us is the best possible way to settle this quick and cheap. Keep in touch and be patient with us. We will reach out to you soon. Do you have permission to conduct a negotiation on behalf of your organisation?
You took data? What? Like you took files?
And then they send a list of the files that they've encrypted to kind of prove that they're legit. And then they ask the company, you can pick 2 to 3 random files from the list and we will upload them to this chat as proof of possession. To prove that we can properly decrypt your data, you can upload 2 to 3 encrypted files to our chat and we will upload decrypted copies back.
We have to pay too, yes?
Surely.
Okay, what is the price? What do we get in return?
And then Akira goes on about what they can offer the company. And then they say that they're willing to set a £300,000 price for decryption, evidence of data removal, a security report, a guarantee not to publish the data, and a guarantee not to attack the company in the future.
As you can see from this chat, Akira wants to come up as a professional organization. They do this not only to ensure they get some trust from their victims and that they feel pressured to have they feel pressured to pay the ransom, but it's also to appeal to other affiliates as well. So potential people who may want to collaborate them, who may want to pay part of their ransom fees as well in order to use their software. And so what Akira will threaten to do is leak the data. So what these ransomware groups have is their own dedicated website on the dark web. And on that, they will post all the information that they've stolen from these companies. And it sort of acts as a trophy board for them in a way. So not only do they get the respect of the potential hackers who want to collaborate with them and other groups as well, but they'll also show that they're very serious about what they do to future potential victims who may stumble upon their website as well. They'll know that what their data is truly at risk when Akira is in their system. So now this is
that they just negotiate a bit between them to discuss what's happening, what's confused.
In some cases, what victims try to do is they try to delay the process, but you'll see that this may anger the group representative.
Yeah. So Akira says here, we will need your decision. We will put your name on our blog today, and then everyone needs to hurry up. We won't wait long, even though the victim has said, like, we're a local government organisation, we can't pay you that quickly.
So here they're negotiating the price, and here they say, our board is at this level of approval, $137,000. Monies over this amount have other local regulatory hurdles.
And then Akira discusses that internally, and then they say, the management has decided to accept your offer. I will provide you with a Bitcoin wallet ID shortly. And then they provide, here it is, give it us in 24 hours.
Now, as you can see, they weren't able to gather the funds in time. And because of this, they ended up posting this company's details online. So there have been cases where people's passports have been leaked, their financial data has been leaked, everything that the company has on them that you may submit for like checks or anything, all of it is online for other people to use. So it's not just other hackers who will take this information, it will be people who will want to sell your identity, people who will take up money in your name, commit fraud in your name. That's why it was particularly dangerous. Yeah. So as we saw before, they wanted their victims to pay them in Bitcoin. How many of you guys have heard of Bitcoin before? Do you know how it works? So for those of you who don't know, Bitcoin is a decentralized currency. For the purposes of this presentation, I'll give a very basic, abstracted rundown of how it works and focus more on what criminals do with the money once they have it in their hands. So how Bitcoin works is it's completely private. So if I were to make a transaction in pounds, if I wanted to give Becky £10, I would have to go to my bank. My bank holds my details, that includes my name and my bank account number. They also can see how much money is in my bank account. So I go to them and I give them Becky's details. The bank will then verify that Becky is a real account, and then they will send over £10 from my account to hers and keep track of that transaction as well. Bitcoin is much more private. So if I wanted to send money to Becky using Bitcoin, I would instead send it directly to her wallet ID. So everyone would be able to see this transaction, but all they would be able to see is my wallet ID, the number of Bitcoin that's going to Becky's wallet ID, and what her wallet ID is. So what this means is every transaction is completely public, but you are not able to see who owns the Bitcoin wallet. And so it allows that layer of privacy so that nobody can know who you are or where your money came from or who it's going to. So what cyber criminals do is once they're paid in Bitcoin, they need to clean their money because they can't just go and convert it into pounds and say, we got this from criminality, you know, got this from crimes. So what they'll do is they go onto online gambling sites. So most gambling sites will have something called a KYC, which is a know your customer. This is information that they'll gather on the user to verify their identity, to know who they are, to make sure that the money is coming from a legitimate place. But as you can see from this picture, that there are gambling sites out there that will actively advertise that they won't ask for your information and they won't ask where your money is coming from. So what they'll do is a criminal will take their money and they'll put it into their gambling account. And because this gambling money is moved through different transactions and through different players' accounts, some of it's withdrawn, some of it isn't, it ends up becoming incredibly difficult. And so because of that, the money gets mixed with legitimate money and eventually it gets taken out by the hacker and they can convert it into real monies like pounds sterling or into dollars or into euros so that they can use it in the physical world. Now, we've talked a lot about Bitcoin and a lot about ransomware, but it's also important to know about the other kinds of malware that criminals may use to get into your systems. So what we have here are rootkits and fileless malware. So rootkits are a set of tools that give somebody the highest privileges on a system. So this gives them the ability to control your entire device. So they can use this to deactivate your antivirus software in order to log your keystrokes, to install new software onto your computer, to steal information from it. And it's not exactly a virus, but it is a malware. A virus is a different type of malware that only corrupts your data. The reason why it's so dangerous is that it spreads through deceptive threat vectors like email spam emails, Trojans, and exploit kits. And they don't really display symptoms on your device. So if you look through your device, it would be quite difficult to detect that it is there unless you know exactly what you're looking for. And it can be used to steal login credentials, your financial data, and it can also be used to allow backdoor access to a system for the criminals to be able to get into your device. Fileless malware is malicious code that runs in a computer's RAM instead of in the hard drive. So it's not exactly stored in a folder. Instead, what it will do is corrupt legitimate application within your device and then run through there. And because all of it is executed in the RAM, once you power off, all of the evidence of it being there is deleted. So once you click onto a faulty link, the malware enters your system and it can move through your different devices. And once it hides in the trusted applications such as Windows, script programs, or PowerShell, it becomes incredibly difficult to detect. So antivirus programs may not necessarily see that it is there.
So all of that stuff that we've talked about sounds very scary. It certainly does to me, and seeing it every day is very scary. But there are very simple things that you can do to protect yourself, obviously. And we talk to businesses every single day about these things. You will have heard probably all of them before, at least hopefully. But we see every day that people still don't do the really, really basic stuff. So probably one of the best things to do is two-factor authentication. Updating systems is super important so that you have the most up-to-date security and patches. Antivirus on any devices. Don't give away personal information. So this is both kind of online and in person. The more you share online and in person, the easier it is to impersonate you. Like with the M&S attack, they were probably able to find all of the information that they needed to do that from somebody's social media account, for example. And then also learning how to spot phishing emails is super important. Hopefully you can all name the things to spot them. But it's still very easy to get caught out. So trying to keep up to date with that and have it in the kind of back of your mind at all times, reading every email, because it happens to businesses every single day that somebody clicks on a phishing email and then suddenly the whole business is down and they've lost all their money. But the most important thing is to have strong passwords. And everyone knows what a strong password looks like, hopefully, having upper and lowercase letters, having numbers and special characters. But some people might not know why that's important. So we do this little demonstration. So when a company stores your password, so let's say you kind of log into Netflix. Does anybody know how Netflix stores your password? Do they just store the characters in their database as you've written them? No? Anyone know what they do with it?
It's hashed.
It's hashed, exactly. So hashing is literally just, somebody here. Hashing is just a way of turning a set of characters into a fixed length output. So I'll do a good example here. Let's say your password was something like cold weather 1, because it's very cold at the moment. Cold weather 1. Then when Netflix store your password, they will store something like this. They'll store some sort of hash like this. So it's just a series of letters and numbers. But sometimes if your password is common, we can find out what your password is from that hash. So this is a website that can do that sort of thing. So if I paste that hash into here and press decrypt, it works out that that hash is cold weather 1. So this website basically has a huge database of hashes that it's seen before and the passwords or phrases that relate to those hashes. And so if your password is super common like this, it means that even if the password is hashed, someone can still work out what your password is. But if we have a more complex password, so can anyone tell me what their favorite restaurant is? Something random.
Somebody said
Go on.
McDonald's.
We all saw it before. I was trying it out. Okay, and what would you order when you go to Nando's?
Well, what did you have today?
Sure.
Did you go to Nando's today?
Yeah.
Good, perfect. So when you went to Nando's, what did you order?
Fish.
Half chicken,
Half chicken.
lemon and herb with 2 creamy mash.
Okay, okay.
Too much detail.
And did you order a drink when you went? Did you have a drink? No, you didn't drink anything. Okay.
I got something, but I didn't order it.
What does that mean? You got water. Yeah, okay, we'll do water. So the kind of suggested password from government agencies is to use 3 random words, and we put full stops in the middle of them just to make it clear that the words are different. Obviously, these words aren't random; they're related to a story that you've told. We find that people can't remember 3 random words, or they're not very good at remembering them. So we suggest that you create some sort of story that's kind of random, like your favorite restaurant, to have your password. So if we hash this, we get a different hash. And if we put it into this website, we find that it doesn't have this hash in the database. It's never before seen that set of characters together. And so this password is much more secure, as you can tell. So that's the kind of thing that we recommend every day to people to use. If you want to test out your own password yourself, this is a website called Password Monster, where you can type in passwords. We wouldn't suggest you put your own passwords into here because we don't know where this website is storing said information. But if you want to just get kind of an idea of what makes a strong password, this is quite good. So if we put the first password that we did into here, cold weather 1, you can see it takes 7 minutes for a computer to break this, which isn't very long. I'm sure we can all wait 7 minutes. But if we put your more complex password in, chicken, it takes 27 centuries. So, that's obviously much more secure. And if we even add like it's December, so let's add some numbers in at the end. We suddenly have 2 million years, much more secure, much better. And so it's really important that we are not using super simple passwords.
Can I ask you something really controversial?
Yeah.
Use the same length password with just lowercase letters and see what the.
So get rid of the.
So get rid of all the any entropy in it. So it's just all lowercase, but the length is of the same length.
So like without the full stops as well.
Yeah.
Like this. So we can see that that's not very secure. If we make it longer, that's pretty good, but not the best. So yeah, it's the full stops that make it, and the capital letters and the numbers that make it secure.
And significantly, if somebody's got access to your system and they find the hash table, they can take that table away and at their leisure just play around and leave it on their machine to crack for days and days and days. And then once they've got the passwords, come back in again.
And there are other tools as well.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. Actually, it's really interesting because looking at the dictionary attacks, I think it's hashcat. I can't remember off the top of my head that you can use and separate with I was about to say periods, with full stops as well.
Yeah.
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 So I'm intrigued to know how it's calculating the months, which I guess is really.
So the only reason I asked that
Yeah.
is that if you look at statistically the tables, if that was random letters and not words, so it's not a dictionary attack, if you have the same amount of letters there, if you mix them up, you'll find that it'll be still exceptionally strong without any entropy of.
That's just that you couldn't remember it.
It's just that you can't.
You have to use a password, but it's the length that makes the difference, not.
Yeah. So that's why we try and say to use words you do know. There's a balance between something that's really secure and something that people can remember, and we try and find something in the middle of that, because obviously you need to be able to remember your
Well, that's why a password manager is going to say.
I was going to come on.
Sorry. Steal your thunder.
That's okay. So yeah, password managers. Probably most people use one, even if they don't know. Like Google stores your passwords automatically in websites, which is really great. It's really convenient. I use that every day. But the most important thing to remember with that is that whatever your password is to that Google account, if that is easy to work out, then someone can get into it and then they'll know all of your passwords for everything. So it's important that at least the initial access to your kind of hub where you store your passwords is really secure. And don't also please use multi-factor authentication if you're using a password manager. We met someone the other day where they had like their password manager was like the simplest password ever. They didn't use multi-factor authentication, and I was just like, this is not good, guys. So yeah. And then the other thing we suggest is having different passwords for different things. So obviously it's important not to use the same password for everything, but if we use a different one for every single website we ever visit, we again won't remember. So at the most basic level, we suggest kind of splitting up your life into different things. So your personal accounts, like your Gmail and your social media, should have at least one password between them. And then your work accounts or your university accounts or whatever should have a completely separate password, so that if your work gets attacked and your password gets leaked, that doesn't come home to you. If your password for your work accounts gets leaked, and then they can now access all of your personal accounts, that will be so much worse for you. So keeping those separate, and then having probably a third password for those really random websites you visit where you're just like signing up for something and you don't really know what it is. Use a different password for that, because they're much more likely to be selling your data somewhere. So yeah, these are the recommendations that we give. So no, that's right. Thank you all for listening. If anyone has any questions about kind of what we're doing on our placement, and also about the things we see every day in cybercrime, we'd be happy to answer. Thank you.